Hello viewers, today for repair I have a Vtech 5.8 gigahertz telephone. This is part of the 5831 series. I believe this particular handset would be model 5881 or i581, I don't remember, but it's something along those lines. And this particular one has a lot of problems. First off, the buttons do not work correctly. As you can see, I will sit here and press all of them and nothing happens. You have to press it unreasonably hard for any of them to register, which is ridiculous. So we're going to fix that. The other problem is the battery apparently doesn't stay in place, and I believe it's an issue with this non-OEM battery. And I'm not an advocate for necessarily OEM batteries, but there's some that aren't very good and there's some that are better. This one, as you can see, just kind of doesn't stay in place. Here's another El Cheapo one. It stays in place just fine. So you got to be careful when you're buying these, but I believe that's the only issue with the battery. The last problem is that the charging connection can sometimes be kind of finicky. This Cradle is pretty nasty, and the contacts on here are also quite dirty, so I think just giving those two elements a good clean should solve all those problems with the charging. I've already checked out this telephone for performance, and it seems to work fine. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to begin to take this apart and see if we can solve all the problems that we're having here. Okay, so let's begin the disassembly process. One thing I want to point out before I carry on is that these telephones were not designed very well. The unit does not sit flat when you put it down without the belt clip on, because the antenna is actually lower than this part, so it's all like discombobulated when you put it down on the table. Anyways, so I'm going to remove the battery cover, and I've already underscored the problem there. Let's see here. These look like standard size screws. Okay, so now open this up, and I'm going to watch and make sure these buttons don't fall out when I open this up. I'm going to grab these before they fall out. Looks like we have back speakers attached via those wires, so we got to pull this off very carefully. And I'll slide this up to release the antenna, and I want to detach this back cover here. We actually have two sets of wires. One is for the battery and the other is for the speaker. So I'm going to remove the speaker. That's the speakerphone speaker and the ringer speaker, and hopefully that'll release both the speaker wires and the battery cover wires. So here we go. And we get multiple different size screws here, which I don't like. Okay, it looks like not exactly sure how this comes out of here. hoping it does come out. There we go. Okay. Oh, you know what this is? This is the vibrator, not the battery contacts. Those is the battery contacts, and this is the vibration. Okay, so now it looks like this actually comes apart even further, which I suppose will be useful for when we clean it. So I'll go ahead and take this off, and that did absolutely nothing, so I'm going to just put that back on. It looks like this black part should come off, but don't really need it to come off that much that I would sit here and spend time finagling with that, because it doesn't really accomplish much anyways. Okay, so I'll set that aside to clean along with that. Now, here's the speaker. This is a pretty substantially sized speaker, and these do have pretty good speaker phones to them, so that's not too much of a surprise. Let's see here. Looks like there's going to be 5 or 6 screws that hold this in place. Oh, here's another design flaw on this. They have this gigantic antenna for that little tiny thing, and I don't understand why they would do that. You can see actually these are a dual band phone. This is 2.4 and this 5.8. I'm gonna grab the screw board because there's too many screws in this thing. I don't want to misplace them or whatever. Done that too many times recently. Okay, we got the screw board. This is what I'm talking about here. This thing, it's like a magnetic board you can use to put the screws in. I mean, the frying pan's okay when you have just a few screws, but when you're working with this many, the frying pan doesn't cut it. Okay. So I'm going to take all the screws out of here, and I'll do this on video just in case somebody's trying to do this and they want to know which ones to undo. Now, I think that will be sufficient. Let's see if we can pull the whole thing out now. Now, we got 2 little clips up here that are going to hold it in place. I'll try to undo those. That's kind of annoying. I think this one may have to come off also. I'm not really sure what the purpose of that is. Maybe it's a light diffuser. Yeah, actually I think that's what it is. It's a light diffuser for the antenna light up there. Okay, maybe now this will come off. There we go. Okay, so I stand corrected. The clips are not for the keeping this in there, for something else. Okay, now I can already see the problem of why the buttons aren't working. This seems to be covered in some disgusting substance, and the board underneath there is of course just as filthy. That's probably why the buttons aren't working, so we're going to have to clean that out. And it's all inside here too. We have to clean this thing off. This is gross. Alright, let's get to cleaning that first. Normally I would clean this with a cotton swab thing. Let's see if I have it over here, something like this. But since this is so bad, I'm just going to start with this stuff and a thicker towel. Because the thicker towels are a lot cheaper than the cotton swabs are. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do half of this board, and then we're going to test it so we can see if this is making a difference. I'm pretty sure it is, but I just want to demonstrate the concept and see immediate results here in the video. So I'll clean off this left side of numerics, and then I'm also going to go to here and clean off this a little bit. And then I'm going to try to get the battery to stay in there. Unfortunately, this is not a plug-in battery, so sometimes getting a connection without the casing is a little bit flaky. Let's see how well this works. Yep. Ugh, this thing is nasty. Okay, there we go. Oh man, we're gonna press these buttons. As you can see, it's already starting to work better. So that is the problem. That is the fix. So I'm going to go through and clean this entire thing off. I'm not going to video that because there's nothing exciting going on. Once this board is cleaned off, I'll pick back up the video and we'll get some more footage of this telephone. Alright, those are now cleaned up, and this should work fine now. So I'm going to do a quick test, and then we're going to move on to cleaning this piece, which will be interesting for a reason I'll explain momentarily. I really wish I could take these pieces off of here, but I can't. Okay. Should be able to do... I don't know if there's numbers in the call log or not. Everything's registering fine. Okay. So, whoops. Okay. So now what I'm going to do here, that's all we're going to do for the board and the dial pad. Now we're going to get those things away from the clean board. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to clean this out, and this is going to be interesting because the speaker is actually still there. It doesn't, it's not hardwired to the board. It's got like some sort of contacts that connect on the board there, and so that's actually, I wonder if I could just pull that out of there. Durr. Wow, okay, so never mind, this could be cleaned as normal. And I'll also clean this off, and clean this off as well. Okay, so now everything has been cleaned. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin to reassemble this telephone. The first thing I want to do is put this speaker back in place, because since that's fairly typical, I imagine that would be something I would forget. So I'm going to put that back in place. And let's just rests right there. Next I will, oh dear, we're having some sort of a freak show upstairs. So next I'm going to put this stuff back in place. We got this speaker and the vibration. Now I believe the vibration was, let's see here, I may have to go back in the video and review this because I'm not terribly familiar with these. Actually, no, I think I can figure this out. It would have sat in here like this. There we go. Now I actually have another one of these upstairs, and the vibration thingy is not working. So it looks like another video is going to be in order of on that one to try to figure out why the vibrator is not working, and maybe if it's just failed, maybe I can get a replacement one. I don't know much about these vibration things, but if I have to learn about them, I suppose I will. I don't like how these wires are. This is just not ideal. It's very difficult to get in here and work with all these wires like this. I do like that there's a lot of goop on the board to keep them from breaking though, which is nice. Let's see here. Now this is not fitting into place. To move that down a little bit like that. And then there we go. I think. Oh, well, how come that's not sitting in place? We seem to be having a problem with the vibrator. Let me figure this out. Okay, so that's how it's supposed to go. Fits in there like that. So now I should be able to get this piece back, and that fits perfectly into place. Alright, I'm going to just put one screw in here. I'm not sure if I'll be able to, I probably should, well actually I think it'll be okay. Normally I would put the board back into place first on the that side. On that side, but in this case I think there's enough slack on the wires to just do it this way. So let's see here. Screens look pretty clean, so put this back into place. Speakerphone doesn't want to go back. There it goes. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So now I will get this piece and put this back. Actually, that goes in afterwards. I neglected to clean these buttons, but now they're cleaned. So I'm going to put, well actually I got to open the headset jack first. Actually, in this case it doesn't really matter because of the way it's situated. But I'm going to attempt to put this board back in place now. This headset jack is kind of set up really strange, and that's what's creating some difficulty here. Okay. Now this contraption, I believe, goes like this. Come on. Okay, so I want to screw that in first. That's being kind of a nuisance. Okay, now before we go any further, I want to give this another test. So, again, we have to kind of finagle with the battery here. The base is now plugged in, so we'll never get a connection to the base. But as you can see, everything is working perfectly fine. Is it that it doesn't allow you to put pound in there? Well, we're going to say it's probably working. Same with those two. I think they work. It's just not available in this menu. Alright, so now I'm going to close this up here. Actually, I think I want to power the base and make sure this is all working, and then we'll close it up. Okay, the base is now connected. We should have phone in there. I just want to check this earpiece out because it's kind of flaky, you know, with the way the speakers. I want to make sure that's sitting in place correctly. So hopefully I can get this to work long enough to connect. Here we go. I think that's working. Let's do a so we turn the ringer on here, and we'll also put the vibrate on. Now let's do an intercom check. It's vibrating. Testing 1 2 3. Check check check. Okay, we seem to be having a lack of transmit. Check. Check 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. I don't think this is working quite as well as it should be. Whoops. Check 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 check. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of modulation there. I'll try putting it on speaker. Check 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 check. 1 2 3 1 2 3. Yeah, very low modulation. Let's make a call and see if it's any different.
To hear delivery options.
Check 1 2 3 4 5 6.
Message recorded. To hear delivery options. Delivery options. To review your message. To cancel and
Yeah. Okay. So that's not transmitting correctly. So we're going to have to take a look at that and see why we don't have any modulation on the microphone end. Now I'm going to do another test message here at the base to make sure there's nothing wrong with the transmitter. Then we'll look at the handset. Testing 1 2 3 4 5 6.
Message recorded. To hear delivery options. Delivery options.
Testing 1 2 3 4 5 6.
That selection is incorrect.
You're incorrect. Okay, so that's working. So it's definitely an issue with the handset. So I was not expecting this. Let's open this up again and see exactly what's going on here. So that's the microphone down there. See, it could very well be that this is just so clogged with dirt that it's not working. Let's see if I can take that off, and if not, we're going to have to do something else. Okay. Whoop. I thought I'd turn that off. Okay, so I just cleaned the microphone. Let's see if this is working any better. I have a feeling, based on the fact that it's getting feedback, that it's working fine. So I'm going to mute the bass. Jeez. Check 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. Okay, so now we seem to have modulation here from the microphone. So what's happened is this piece here that goes over the microphone has gotten so clogged with grime that the audio is not transferring through it. So I'm going to have to figure out, maybe we'll replace that. Alright, so what I've done here is I'm going to replace the little circular black piece there because it's too dirty to work correctly. And that the only purpose that thing serves is to keep the speaker, or I mean the microphone clean. So what I've done here is I've taken a piece of ticker towel and I put it over the microphone hole, so that should prevent any dust from getting in there. So now I'm going to reassemble the handset enough to test it, and we're going to see if that has solved the problem or not. In theory, I can't really imagine why it wouldn't have, but you never know. Let's get the speaker back in place here. This speaker is really proving to be kind of a pain. I don't like this. I don't like this design because it comes out very easily. I mean, it certainly has its advantages over the wired ones because they don't, the wires don't ever break. But I don't know. I think it's a little more difficult to service in this case. All right, so okay, and that's all right. Now I'm gonna slip this back on here just enough like this, so the battery terminals come through, and I'm gonna do an intercom here again, and we'll see if this works or not. Searching, searching, searching. Searching, there we go. Intercom, handset 1. Oh boy. Check 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Hello, hello, 1 2 3. Okay, so that worked. This is operating normally. Well, now it's not because the battery came out, but that solved that problem. So now I'm going to proceed the reassembly process here. So I'll put the buttons, the volume control buttons back in place. And what else needs to go in place? This thing here needs to go back on the top. I'll put this back in. I must have glossed over that transmit issue when I did the initial checkout, because I don't do the initial checkouts nearly as thoroughly as I do the final checkouts, so maybe I should start doing them more thoroughly. Anyways, the handset's back together now. I'm going to put the battery in and we'll do one last test here. Actually, after we do that, we're going to take a look at the Cradle as well. It's vibrating and everything. Check 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Testing 1 2 3. So that's working. Earpiece works. So let's just check out all the buttons too. I'm pretty sure they all work. The phone button doesn't feel quite as nice as I think it should, but I'm not really sure why. I've cleaned it out pretty well. But anyways, all these buttons are working. So we'll just move on to the Cradle now. I didn't like how that talk or on, whatever it's called. I didn't like how that on button was feeling, so I just went in there and cleaned it again. Didn't make too much of a difference, but at least I know now it's not going to quit working in a couple of months. It's always better to take an extra 5 minutes now and prevent some freak show from occurring in the future. And to try to cut corners now and then have to come back in here again when it fails. Okay, so now it's a lot less sticky now, so that should be okay. So let's move on to the, actually I'm going to put these last screws in, and then we're going to move on to the cradle. Okay, so here's this handset, complete and ready to go. Put this other telephone aside for now. So here's the, thanks for interrupting me. Here's the cradle, and there's actually evidence that somebody's been in here before. You can see there's it's all marked up there, so like if somebody tried to pry it apart. So what we're going to do here is we're going to undo the screws here at the base. And I think these are the only screws that are on this thing, so we're just going to fry these. And now this should just come off. Although clearly, as we're seeing here, should and will don't always operate in the same realm. There we go. So here's the contacts. What we're going to do is, you can see there's all sorts of junk on there. So we're going to clean those off. And actually, this has got a nice weight in there, unless that's a heat sink. I think it's just a weight. So clean that off. I'm going to go wash this off with water because this is got a little bit of nastiness in there. So we'll clean that, and I'll come back and do that. Okay, so the cradle is cleaned, and it's very blurry. Let's see if it works. Let's plug this in, and there we go. We got charge. Actually, I just took a call on these, and it worked fine. So the system is working well, and this handset has been repaired. So thank you for watching. Comment, subscribe, and out. That was a fail. I was supposed to go like that. Oh well.